Welcome back, Camily. Today I have a story time. In my last video, I ended it by kind of briefly touching on this, but by no means did I tell you guys what happened. So I wanted to sit down and tell the whole story because yeah, it was so crazy and I still just can't believe that happened to me. It was so random and I feel really lucky that we're all okay. And it's definitely taught me that I need to be a lot more cautious and safe. It's not that I could have done something to prevent this from happening, but since it all went down, I went and bought some pepper spray and I'm definitely a lot more careful to lock my car doors and everything. So it was the girls' first day of school. So in the morning I just went and dropped them off and then I met with my boyfriend to go see a movie. My boyfriend got wings at the theater. Doesn't seem important, but it will come up later. And I planned it so that when the movie was over, we would go straight from the theater to go pick up the girls, and that's what we did. And then we went to McDonald's to get some ice cream and hear about how their first day went. And everything just felt really normal. It was a very normal day. We drove back home, and then as soon as we parked in the driveway, my boyfriend was like, "Oh, I don't have any ranch for my wings. Let's go to my work," because his work was super close by. He works at a restaurant. They obviously have a ranch. And so instead of getting out of the car, we're like, all right, let's go real quick to the restaurant and get some ranch for the wings. So we pull up to the restaurant, we park right next to a handicap spot, but we weren't parked in a handicap spot. So he's in and out and I just stay in the car with the girls and we're just hanging out and talking. And then he comes back in the car, he's got his ranch, he puts it down, and then he turns around and looks out the back window and he just very casually says, "There's a guy running up to us holding a Whippet canister." And right as he says that, I look up at the rear view mirror and so I can see behind us. And just as he said, there was a guy holding a big metal thing to inhale Whippets, or I don't know what he was inhaling. He was huffing some kind of aerosol gun. It was pretty big, and I see him put it behind his head and then smashes my rear windshield. Glass flies everywhere into the car, all over my kids. They're just sitting in their car seats, and my boyfriend's immediate instinct was to lock the door and then put the girls' heads down. It all happened so fast, but in slow motion at the same time. But yeah, within seconds of acknowledging that there's a guy running up to us, he had already shattered the back windshield. And I was really frozen. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know what this guy's next move was, if he was trying to rob us, if he wanted to hurt us. Literally just like a random guy. He was probably 30 something and he looked pretty normal. He had a beard and glasses. But yeah, he looked very, very upset. Upset enough to smash my windshield in. I see him digging around in my trunk, which he's just kind of putting his hand through the hole in the window. I had no idea what he was looking for, what he was trying to grab out of my trunk. There wasn't really anything in there besides a blanket and an air pump for my tires and nothing worth stealing. We realized later that he was probably trying to get his Whippet canister because it probably flew through the windshield and into my trunk. So he was grabbing that. I quickly grab anything in the car that I wouldn't want stolen because if we're getting robbed, I'm trying to take my camera and my phone and my wallet. So I quickly grab all that, unbuckle the girls. My boyfriend at this point had gotten out of the car and is talking to the guy and just yelling at him. They're just yelling at each other. And he's like, "Well, what the hell are you doing? There's kids in this car. What's your deal, man? What did we do to you?" And the guy is like, "There's kids in the car? Prove it. Prove it there's kids in the car." And I'm like, did you not see them in their car seats when you shattered my back windshield? This guy is clearly really high, incoherent, can't even really make sense of what's happening. And he says, "That's what you get for parking in a handicapped parking spot." And it's just like going off about that. That's the reason why he did it. Before he said that, I did think it might have been because I have a pride sticker on the back of my car. That was my first thought as to why a random stranger would be attacking me, because of something that was on my car that he didn't like, because literally we were just completely minding our business. But no, he thought we were parked in a handicapped spot, which we weren't. We were parked right next to one. And I guess that made him mad enough in his state of mind to justify doing that. So yeah, I'm getting the kids out of the car as fast as I can. They are also just kind of in shock. They don't really understand what's happening. I don't think any of us really understood what was happening. But yeah, they were just really confused, and they asked why he did that. And as I was rushing them out of the car, I think they started to understand that we're in danger and started to cry at that point. But they did a really good job of getting out of the car and listening to me. The restaurant hadn't opened yet. They were getting ready to open. And so all his coworkers had just kind of watched that happen from inside. They heard a big noise, they came outside, and they were already on the phone with the police by the time that we had gotten out of the car and started to get the girls into the restaurant. So after my boyfriend has a little bit of back and forth with this guy, he storms to the back of the restaurant and comes back holding a bat. And the guy who did it is outside just kind of wandering off, and he's, at this point, might I add, covered in blood. He severely cut his arm, and so he's just walking around bleeding and continuing to huff on this canister. And my boyfriend remains like a very safe distance from him. He's definitely not like trying to confront the guy, but we also don't want him to wander off before the cops get there. And so he just kind of stalks him around the premises. There's a big parking garage that's connected to some apartments across the street from the restaurant. And my boyfriend asks the guy his name, and he gives him like a fake name. I don't remember what it was. It started with a B. We learn later that that definitely wasn't his name. And the guy also says that he lives here, that this is my apartment, this is where I live, I'm gonna go back home. And my boyfriend's like, no, you're not. The cops are coming. So all that's happening. Meanwhile, inside, his coworkers were being so sweet and helpful. They got us some waters, and the girls each got a basket of chicken nuggets on the house, and we had some ranch with it. The whole reason we were there in the first place. And it's just like, if we hadn't gone to get some ranch, it's such a simple thing, and it just feels so random that this guy attacked us. It feels like forever that we're waiting for the cops to come. Meanwhile, I'm just making sure the girls didn't get hurt. I'm checking their hair for glass, just really making sure that they're situated. At this point, they're completely unbothered. They're just like watching YouTube on my phone, eating chicken tenders, having a blast. Coco did say like, so was that a bad guy? And I'm like, yeah, that was a bad guy. She's like, I've never seen a bad guy before. I've never seen someone do something bad like that. So she definitely had a few questions, but she didn't really seem scared, just more so confused. I was definitely still in shock and just pretty shaken up and didn't really know what to do with myself. But yeah, eventually the cops get there, and I have his coworkers just sit with the girls while I go talk to them. My boyfriend's just sitting outside of the parking garage, holding the bat still. I mean, the cops catch up with him, and he tells us that the guy is just sitting under the stairs. And so the cops start talking to the guy, and I kind of catch up with my boyfriend and ask like, what has happened while I was inside. And he told me everything that the guy was saying, and his supposed name, and the fact that he said he lived there. He also said that the guy was talking to himself in a female voice and like consoling himself. He'd like go back and forth. So yeah, clearly he was not in a good state of mind. As much as I was really upset that he did that to us, I also was very aware that clearly this guy needs some help, and to not be walking the streets right now. And as I said, he's just like covered in blood everywhere. So we're kind of sitting outside of the stairwell listening in on his conversation with the cops, kind of being nosy. And as he's talking to the cops, he's still just like huffing this stuff. And he says to them, I'm not talking to you guys, I'm not going anywhere with you, I need a lawyer, where's my lawyer? And then he just says, you know what, you guys can just shoot me right here. At that point, I get kind of freaked out, and I don't think he has like a weapon on him, but if he did and he tried to pull that out on the cops, then that would be really bad, and I don't want to be close to that while it's happening. So I walk away and go kind of on the other side of the parking lot where the restaurant and my car was, and I just kind of assess the damage done to my car, and there's just like a ton of blood dripping down the back of my car, which is so disgusting. And it's just kind of setting in that like, I'm gonna have to clean this up. Like no one does that for you when something like this happens. Like, I'm gonna have to get this window fixed, get rid of all this glass, and clean up this guy's blood. Like, I go inside and check on the kids again, and when I go back out, there is several more cop cars. There's like 7 cops now. There started with 2 cops, now there's 7 cops and an ambulance and a few EMTs. And at that point, the guy had been removed from the stairwell and they're putting handcuffs on him. And then I start talking to one of the cops. He's asking me and my boyfriend for the story. And then he says to me, all right, which car is yours? Like, let's go get your license plate number. I didn't mean to be a smartass, but I kind of sarcastically was like, oh, it's the one down there with a hole in it. I don't know why I said that. I was just really nervous. And the cop was like, no, I mean, yeah, I know, I just mean. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I'm just messing with you. I'm not trying to, I'm sorry. I was so embarrassed for saying that. I don't know why that slipped out of me like that. But yeah, we had a little laugh about it and went down to my car. And then my boyfriend was asking him like what kind of charges are gonna be pressed against this guy. And he was really emphasizing like, there was kids in the car, like, is that not child endangerment? And he was like, well, if the girls got hurt, if there's any cuts on them or physical injuries, then yes. But if not, then no. We couldn't charge that. They asked me if I wanted to press charges, and I said absolutely. And then one of the cops went inside with us and got our IDs and our numbers and everything, and the girls' names, and they got their flashlights and looked at the girls just to make sure there was no cuts on them or anything, or glass in their hair. And that was kind of it. We hung out at the restaurant for a little bit longer and talked with his coworkers. And they were so sweet. They helped so much with the girls, and they were able to call the police super fast. So yeah, I'm glad it happened outside of my boyfriend's work compared to like any other random parking lot where we didn't have like somewhere safe to go right away. So yeah, then my boyfriend drove my shattered car to his place because it was super close by. Mind you, we're like 30 minutes from my house because he doesn't live super close to me. And then he moves over the car seats, makes sure that there's no glass in them, drives his car back and picks us up and takes us back to his place. And you know, that was their first day of school. They had school the next day to go to, but there was no way I was gonna be able to drive them to school with my car like that, nor was I gonna be able to drive home. And so we stayed the night, and my boyfriend let us drive his car 30 minutes to take the girls to school in the morning, 30 minutes back to his place, and helped me start filing the insurance claim and setting up for my car to get fixed. Yeah, and then we went and swept out any glass that we could and taped the window so that way no bugs would get in there, and cleaned off the blood from my car. And by the next day, I was able to get my window fixed and go back home. But yeah, It was a lot. It was a lot to handle. I'm so grateful for my boyfriend. He handled it so well and was just really there for me. Like, I don't know what I would have done in that situation if he wasn't there. Or even like the aftermath of it and getting the girls to school the next day. Yeah, and just like emotionally, he was very supportive. I suffer from PTSD, and that was a very triggering event for me. I think it'd be scary for anyone and kind of leave you a bit shook afterwards. But for me specifically, it brought up some really horrible memories, because that's not the first time that I've been in a situation where a window has been broken and glass has flown everywhere. It wasn't a car window, but it was a window in my home. And so everything about that, and the glass shattering everywhere, and just being scared and not knowing what's gonna happen next, and not knowing if I'm about to get really hurt, and just trying to protect my kids. It brought up a lot from those specific memories. And so that night after we went back to his place, I definitely did kind of have a PTSD episode and really needed to process that memory. It's almost like there's like a song stuck in my head and it's not gonna go away until I play the song, but it's not a song, it's a very traumatic memory, and it's not gonna go away until I very vividly sit in it and let my brain play out the memory. Like, I can try as hard as I can to ignore it and get it out of my head and not have to play it back in that way, but it's just not gonna go away until I do. So yeah, I just kind of like curl up into a little ball and close my eyes and play the memory. And it's really distressing, but I feel better afterwards. And so he was just there with me through that. And I was able to talk about that memory with him afterwards, because he didn't really know exactly what I had been through. And I mean, he knows I have PTSD, but didn't exactly know what was coming up inside of me and what I was having to replay in my head. So yeah, all around pretty traumatic. But like I said, it could have been worse, and no one ultimately was physically harmed, which is surprising because there was a lot of glass and the guy was bleeding a ton, especially for the girls to be as close as they were to the back windshield. I'm very grateful that they didn't get hurt at all. Just my car got hurt and I had to pay $500 to fix it, which sucked. I think because I've been through so much in my life, so many scary things, so many bad things have happened, I just kind of have an attitude like nothing bad can happen to me because I've already had a lifetime of bad things happen to me. And so I walk around like I'm kind of invincible. I'm generally not really scared, just walking around the city by myself. But after this, it was kind of a wake-up call that just because I've been through a lot of bad stuff doesn't mean I'm less likely to go through more bad stuff. It's so completely random, and what happened to us was so completely random. Like, anybody could have parked there and pissed this guy off. But yeah, I've got pepper spray now, and I've definitely been a lot more vigilant, especially when I'm downtown and everything. But yeah, that's what's been going on. Really happy to have my car fixed. That's all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, Camille.